helped to start a little school that was then called the Harrisville School. It's now called the Harrisville Children's Center. And our intent at that time was to create what we were thinking of as a British infant school. Infants in England refers to kids 4 to 7. But we were trying to create a school that felt like home and that preserved the magic of early childhood and gave kids a lot of opportunities to be in the natural world. Just a couple of images. I always have liked this kind of the guys hanging out together kind of feeling, is that I think this was the first year of the school. And then just to show you that we really have been involved in this a long time, Jane, would you stand up for just a moment?
Oh my.
We did a lot of cooking as curriculum. I think the Native Community Farm people are going to do cooking this morning. There's the children and a hippie teacher doing needle points. And then really at that time, we really were trying to do a lot of being outdoors in all weathers with kids. And I'm going to leave that slide up for a little while. That's Kathleen Vetter, who's going to teach our sheep to shawl course this summer. We've kind of insisted, we've resisted the whole movement towards standardization, and we keep trying to have coursework for teachers in training that's really connected to real stuff. So we do a sheep to shawl course, and Kathleen's going to be teaching it this summer. So from those early years, 40 years ago, of working at the Harrisville Children's Center or the Harrisville School at that point, I have 3 images of activities. One of them was I had been teaching a class with adults, and we had gone out into the woods, and we had found a little rivulet and had made a village with lots of little characters in it. So we built this village in the woods with adults. And then the next day I took my 4-year-olds to walking in the woods, and we came upon it. And I didn't say that we were going to find anything. We just came upon this little kind of miniature village. And the kids immediately just kind of went to playing it. And there was never any question about where it came from. Right? How did this get here? Right? It was just kind of implicitly assumed that there were forest creatures that created this, and it was a perfectly fine place, and they weren't going to care if we played in it. It was just that kind of immediacy of recognizing that there were compatible creatures in the woods, and they were going to play with them. The second one was I walked out to recess one day, and there are about 7 girls sitting in a circle, and they all have a big flat rock in front of them, and then they all have a pounding rock, kind of a round rock, and then they've gotten schist from the stone wall. The stone wall had this kind of very crumbly, metamorphic schist in it, so it's the kind that you can kind of break it in your hands. So they had chunks of the schist, and they were all sitting around in a circle, pounding the schist, and they called it making sand. But it was so completely evocative of hunters and gatherers, women in a hunting and gathering culture, preparing some kind of grain. And it wasn't anything that anybody had showed them. It was an activity that emerged out of their own kind of, oh, here are the rocks, here's this crumbly rock, let's do this. I think they were chanting something too, but I'm not sure I'm making that up. The third one involves rivulets again. And it was a day like today where it had been raining for about a week. And we went out onto the playground, and there's a place where when it was really wet, there would be a drainage pipe, and then running down this kind of muddy bank was a little stream. And every now and then a couple of kids would play there, but this day about a dozen boys all got together and started to create this big damming project. So there was a big upper pool and there was a lower pool, and there was a diversification of labor so that there were mud gatherers and there were dam tenders and there were flow monitors. And usually this was a group of kids that were kind of come combative and feisty and didn't get along very well. And on this day, they all cooperated wonderfully. And so I let it go for, past the end of recess, and finally I said, no, we got to end it. And they said, so they agreed that they would all chant, "Let the floodwaters go! Let the floodwaters go!" And they broke down the dams, and the dams, the water kind of washed down over there, the dam, and there was this big flood going down this hillside, and they all cheered. And that turned into a couple of weeks of interesting curriculum. One of the things we did was look at the difference between mud and clay, right? Which was not something I had ever considered. But there was a lot of differentiation between what was mud, what was good for building the dams, and what was not good for building the dams, or what was the difference between mud and clay. And when you made a ball of mud, it was different than when you made a ball of clay. And so it was this very interesting natural investigation. So all three of those things are kind of tied together by what I think of as children entering back into their wild selves. Is that they kind of drop, in all these situations, they kind of drop back into what I think of as their genetic inheritance, their implicit connection to mud and rock and water. And that's a big part of what I think the nature preschool and forest kindergarten movement is about, is allowing kids to enter back into their old wild selves. I'm advocating for this, and I think you are as well, not from some kind of Rousseauian, kind of Luddite back to the land perspective, but because, it's not like we're opposed to technology. It's that this kind of experience for kids, this ability to be in their wild selves, is really what is healthiest for them. It's really what's going to make them healthier and smarter and happier in the world. So I want to kind of I want to kind of portray what I think the forest kindergarten movement is about and the context that it's happening in right now. So just a little bit of history. The nature preschool forest kindergarten movement, everybody pretty much agrees that it emerged in Denmark and Sweden in the 50s and 60s. And it was called, there have been a lot of different names for it. School in all weathers is one of the phrases you'll hear. It was in Scandinavia for a while, and then it spread to Europe. There are now 700 forest kindergartens in England, in Germany. There are a lot of schools that now are moving from being forest kindergartens to forest schools. That's what Juniper Hill School is gradually doing. And there are a lot of examples of forest kindergartens in Asia now as well, and we'll take a look at one of those. So this is really a movement that's been in Europe and Asia and is now starting to take hold in the United States. And I think, I haven't done the research yet, but I think you could trace it all back to Frederick Froebel, who was a German educator in the early 19th century, who was the originator of the kindergarten, the child's garden. So I think that's the kind of lineage. So the basic idea, of course, is that kids are outdoors for some big chunk of the day, whether it's 9 to 1 or 10 to 3 or all day, some big chunk of the day, maybe not every day, but many days during the week is spent outdoors. And this is in direct contradiction to the tendency to do just the opposite, is to actually move, have kids indoors all the time with very little outdoor experience. So I want to look at the context of what the relationship between children and nature is right now in the United States. But the first thing I want to do is take a look at my favorite video about a forest kindergarten.
lead teacher of Cedar Song Nature School, an entirely outdoor school located on Vashon Island. We run a forest kindergarten for children ages 3 to 5. It's an outdoor preschool. The children are out here no matter what the weather, rain, freezing, snow. Part of the idea is that children learn through direct experience, and the lessons that are provided by nature occur spontaneously and organically through our walks out in nature.